Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, second hour. It is wonderful to be with you. So blessed to be with you. So honored as we take a look at this campaign and where we go from here. What about 2026? Uh, the House of Representatives can be recaptured, and it should be. But how would we do it? Under what banner? Let's talk about that. And but let's talk about what happened with this election, because now we're seeing more like a circular firing squad. I think last week we were just trying to recover from the shock. Some of us were shocked, some of us were really not surprised. We were hoping that we would have a win, but we saw some flashing lights. Alan Minsky, executive director of Progressive Democrats of America, and you didn't want to pour salt in this beautiful, beautiful punch, but you knew something was going on, and it didn't quite feel, you didn't feel the energy. You didn't feel it. Of course, Dwight McKee has returned to us. We're so glad that you are here with us, the Dean of the Maafa Redemption Project, founding member of Operation Push, Rainbow Push Coalition, National Action Network, and of course, Minister Curtis Gatewood. He is doing so much great work in North Carolina. I'm so glad that you're with us today. Sending you so much love. Lenny Brody of the Poor People's Campaign of Illinois, and Sheila Garland Olanara, Poor People's Campaign of Illinois. But let me start with you, Alan, because you said something. And I want to remind everybody, please go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Thumbs up, like us, and go to the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. We need you there. We need you there. And follow me on @SantitaJ. That's right. Come on, everybody. We need you. We need you. I looked up and I saw one of the shows we did had gotten about 1.5 million views. I was very, very happy about that. So you all watch the shows down the line, and that is wonderful to see. But let's continue to build the show. Build it. Amen. Well, you know what? This is for the people, Alan Minsky. And even though many of us did not feel good about the fact that Sheila, we had a primary that was canceled. Democrats canceled the primary. Canceled it. We saw them remove the most exciting, the most energizing candidate in 2020, and that was Bernie Sanders. And I'm not saying that just because I support him. If there was a rumor that he was in town, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people were going to show up, and more. So how you push that candidate out and let the one who we were trying to get out the race stay in, I don't get it. But here we are. Okay? Because that's part of all of this too. And so let's talk about this, because you said that, even with our misgivings, Lenny, right? Because we were in Chicago together, you had your convention, we honored Reverend, and so we were all buzzing around the Rainbow Push headquarters and all that, and then heading over to the convention itself, or the soundstage, if you will. And what was interesting was you said something that stayed with me, Dwight. You said, we are cautiously optimistic. I'm paraphrasing you. Said that having been said, what we're going to do is we are going to support Vice President Harris, but we will also be in the streets the next day marching, because we've got to hold the line on our positions. So every time we would talk about this race, we saw warning signs, Alan Minsky. And when you brought that up, you were shushed by the Democratic establishment. Norman Solomon and Jeff Cohen 2 years ago said, hey, please, Joe, don't run, go. You said you were going to be a transitional figure. You said you were going to serve one term. Please announce that, and so we can get going with this, because you're kind of in the way, and we see you struggling now too. Alan, help me to understand where we are, and if there's any hope of us recapturing the U.S. House of Representatives in 2026.
Well, I think the problem around the possibility of of 2026, and maybe framing things with that as the centerpiece. It's a fine way to do it. But my only hesitation in framing it that way is Trump could be so atrocious that could produce enough House seats won by the Democrats and Senate seats won that you could have the Democrats get both houses. They could even position themselves to win in 2028. What I really fear, however, is that the Democratic Party needs to really just sort of change its focus and its presentation to the public, and its focus on to return to the needs of the average household, the large majority of households, which are middle class, working class, and poor American households. There's been an incredible degree of wealth disparity and inequality that's occurred since Ronald Reagan was president, and the policies that really reaffirmed that pulling apart the wealth away from the middle class, the working class, to the wealthier Americans was really signed onto and continued by the Clinton administration, whatever you want to call it, third way politics from the Democratic Party. And so we arrive at a moment, I believe now, where there have been since 2016 really three major political factions in the United States. There's the Trumpian reactionaries on the right. There's the neoliberal center running from the Clinton wing of the Democratic Party through the Romney wing of the Republican Party. And then there are the progressives. And effectively, when you have the Democratic Party align itself, and this isn't to say that the Harris campaign didn't absorb some of the ways that Biden moved the party domestically somewhat to the left, but in the minds of the public, the Democratic Party are presenting themselves effectively as the conservative party. They are the ones who are looking to preserve, right, and therefore conserve the status quo as it's been in the society for the past really 4 decades. An organization of American society that isn't centered upon the working class and middle class households and their welfare, but rather on finance, capital, the benefits of finance, the investor class, et cetera. I mean, that's the neoliberal reorganization of society. And if the Democratic Party stays in that lane, the best case scenario we're going to have is a flip-flop of winning elections with an atrocious right-wing, racist, proto-fascist Republican Party. Because the seeding of populism and concern and focus rhetorically on the working class and middle class will not be in the hands of the Democratic Party. And so, I don't want to see us not win in 2026, but what I think needs to happen, and of course I look forward to partnering with Rainbow Push on this, to pick up with Reverend Jeanette Wilson where we left off and presenting like a people's agenda. There's going to be a sort of a battle for the soul of the Democratic Party coming up in the next few months. There's going to be a new head of the party that's going to be selected. And right now there is something of a leadership void in the party. And it's very important that I think organizations like Rainbow Push and PDA actually sort of coming out in some ways, emerging out of the Jackson campaigns from the 1980s, really be clear about presenting a politics of the Democratic Party that we think not only will be a winning hand for them, but really foregrounds in a forthright way that the American public can recognize through the language of the Democratic Party, through the posture of the Democratic Party, to really be in favor of the welfare of middle class, working class, and poor Americans, the majority of the population, in the way that it has not been. I mean, I think the Democratic Party, as it's existed, with a lot of influence from the consultancy class, have been really fearful of losing their funding. And that has defined the policy presentation to the public. And I think the party has to get away from that. It has to be confident. Now, there's some paradoxes here, not the least of which, for all of this idea that the Republican Party has absorbed a portion of the working class, when you look at the policy positions and support for policy positions that are clearly pro-middle class, working class policy positions, Democratic Party members support them massively more so than the Republican Party does. So the idea that there's a sort of a dominant group within the Democratic Party, call them coastal elites or elites, 80% of Democrats basically support the Sanders agenda. When you look at it policy by policy, I mean, the general public, those are very close to being majority positions, or they are majority positions. But when you poll Democrats, they're overwhelmingly supportive. Now, part of the lift we'll have to create is convincing those working class members who now are aligned with the Republican Party to see that our policy positions, not anything Trump is offering, because Trump doesn't offer anything to working class and middle class families except again, the logic of white supremacy. If you're, a white working class household, and we know that logic, that there's this human psychology that says, if I have two and my neighbor has one, I want to go for that as opposed to I have three and my neighbor has three, right? And that's a large part of the logic of white supremacy throughout American history, and part of the lure of that for the white working class with Trumpism, because there's no policies that really represent in any clear, concrete way. I mean, eliminating all the labor that is done by non-documented immigrants. First of all, that's almost certainly not going to happen. But if it did, the ways in which that would benefit the working class, I mean, on paper, one can conceive of it. Again, it's not a reality that's going to happen. The policies that will live, I mean, the labor is essential that's being done, and it's being done in a very low cost way. You'll have huge inflation if that population is removed from the country. It'll be economic chaos. What we need to realize is that population is here, and there are very, very clear political strategies advocated by Rainbow Push, by Reverend Jackson back in the 80s, by Bernie Sanders in the past decade or so, that are really tried and true, historically proven and around the world, that can create a prosperous middle class out of working class and poor communities. And we have to advocate them, make clear to all working class members that these are the materially beneficial policies. And then I actually would think we'll find the base of the Democratic Party will support those. Even if they are, college educated people on the coasts. And the problem really within the Democratic Party are the establishment politicians who are very tied to the consultancy class, who are committed to raising money at the level that the Republican Party raises in order to be competitive. Now, that's a problem because that's how elections are fought. So there's going to be a lot of strategy and thinking that goes into how we take this. If we do find the progressive message is ascendant, how the progressives, a more progressive Democratic Party, can compete and win elections. We know on policy we should, but the power of money in campaigns is very real. And we have to really have a strategy going into these next few months about how, as a more progressive Democratic Party, we can win. And by the way, a figure familiar to Chicagoans, and I know Santita's in Chicago a lot of the time, or is there right now, is apparently Rahm Emanuel is interested in being the moderate party champion to be the next head of the Democratic Party.
Help me with that, because in Chicago, I can tell you right now, that's not going to work.
But I can tell you there are a lot of consultants for the Democratic Party who see him as their champion, because what does that mean for them? By the way, I mean, I don't mean to cast the consultants as the most evil force in American politics, but you can definitely see the results that happened on Tuesday, and they are certainly not the people who are most depressed about it. Because when you have Trump win, for the people who are reliant upon raising money for the Democratic Party, they just see dollar signs right now.
And you know what? They can see them, but they won't have us. I promise you before God, Laquan McDonald has been dead 10 years. It's as if his killing happened yesterday.
Right.
They shot that child 16 times.
Right.
The mayor covered it up so he could be reelected. He closed our schools in the Black community, which irreparably injured our Black children. It's almost, as a Christian, I can say it's unforgivable. Almost unforgivable. I have to stay rock to the line on that. Honest to God. He is not the answer. I promise you. I promise you. Now, they can get the money, but they won't have the votes. They're acting like, how they're looking for the Reagan Democrats. They're going to be looking for the Black ones, too.
Yeah,
I come back. I promise you for the Lord.
It would be if he actually ends up being the head of the party, it will be as depressing to me as the.
It won't be depressing. It'll be a game changer. I promise you.
Right.
Dwight McKee, what say you?
I don't think they care about the votes. I think it's the business for the Democrats now, the Democratic establishment. And they see a way to raise money. They see his brothers being able to bring these stars in to have these galas. And they see them as being able to get these contracts. And so the goal, I think, of not just the consultants, but even those who are winning these offices is not to just be part of the is not to.
Oh, Dwight, well, when we get him back, he's having some audio issues. But Sheila, what say you?
Hey, Santita. Hey, everybody. I know there's a lot to be said, and things are shifting, and I think this sort of endless analysis of what happened and what the Democratic Party needs to do is kind of, in my experience, and what we're dealing with the levels of poverty that is growing in this country, is off the mark. I mean, I think we have an opportunity to really talk about what do we do on the ground around the country, and how are people going to really start looking at themselves from an independent lens politically. And I know that some of the independent votes that came out were surprising the gain. And so we're convinced that the only thing that we can do is suffer in this duopoly. But I think we really have to start looking at what does the future portend. And a lot of this is, you know, just sort of predicated on what we've done. And none of these things are working for the vast majority of people in this country. So, I mean, I'd like to engage in a discussion on many levels that really talks about, what's happening at the local level. What are people organizing in preparation not only for the upcoming, Trump administration, but how is that going to bring community together to really begin to chart our own course about how we're going to gain some sort of political independence and address the issues that confront a significant majority. I mean, I would say this every time I'm on your show, Santita, because I want to get this over to people that 43, I mean, according to our research with the Poor People's Campaign, 140 million plus people in this country live at or below poverty. In Illinois, we're looking at 4.5 million people living at or below poverty. In every county of the country, the federal minimum wage means that no one can afford housing at the current federal minimum wage. And so these are real bread and butter issues that were not being addressed in a way, presumably, for people to, make that leap over to the Democratic Party for whatever reason. I mean, I think one of the things that, we're fearful of Trump, but one of the things that rarely gets talked about is J.D. Vance sitting in the wings. In many respects, Trump is quote unquote a moderate, but the people that are handling him, the people that are supporting him, the people that are grooming J.D. Vance, those people are people that we need to be really concerned about in the upcoming years. So one of the things that I think happens in our community and various organizing spaces that I see is that we don't always have a broader vision of where we could potentially go if we look at the people who need change in this country, the 140 million people. They're the ones who want change, and many of them probably stayed away. But we did have a pretty decent voter turnout, but a lot of people did stay away.
But see,
And
but that's why.
oh, I'm sorry.
No. But to engage you, that's why I brought up 2026 because I saw the devastation. And I have to tell you, I was taken aback by it, Sheila and Lenny.
Yeah.
Gatewood. Because I'm a Howardite. I mean, you're ahead of the vice president, so everybody was going to Washington, and everybody was calling each other. Are you coming? Are you coming? Are you coming? Blah blah. And the devastation was complete. Then I did several shows, and one of my friends said, "I'm just so upset. I think that." Even what I said tonight, I couldn't really get it out because she was traumatized. And so I said, well, we've got to find something something that is, you got to start with the small things so that you can build to the big things, Sheila. So I said, okay, 2026 is achievable. It's right here. I mean, because 2026 kicks off the day of the election, So here it is. Because you have to give people something to do. Because right now, so many people are despondent and frightened.
But part of the problem is that the double-mindedness of the Democratic Party is that the victors in the Democratic Party don't know if they want to represent the poor or be part of the 1%. So the Clintons and the Obamas and probably the Bidens leave office, and they go from the 25% when they start to the 1% when they leave office. All of them now are multimillionaires. And so they are playing their own best interest. And they're serving the constituency that can make them rich, not to pull up the poor.
That's
Uh,
you're saying something, Dwight, because
Mhm.
that's how probably a lot of people see it, and that has a huge impact on how people are responding in this moment. But I do think that we have to really start talking about what's in our best interest, and I think for a lot of people who maybe did not participate or maybe went for Trump or whatever, went for Harris for whatever reason, for them what's out there isn't working for them, and so they're trying what they think is something else. And I'm looking at a lot of the comments that are going on around social media, how people are trying to think about what's happening or respond to what's happening, and everybody is all over the map. So, but the one thing that's clear is that people are worried about their bread and butter issues.
mm,
So, for whatever issue, for whatever reason, those bread and butter issues were not addressed in the Harris campaign. And I know that there are all these, she didn't get, she got in late. There wasn't this, there wasn't that. But regardless, if those issues had been front and center, perhaps. But even nevertheless, there's still going to be, we got several wars going on. We've got a genocide going on. We've got trillions of dollars, going out of the country when people are getting kicked
Mhm.
off Medicaid across the country. That's the reality that the 140 million plus people are facing, and that those numbers are just going to continue to grow. I don't think that there's a solution from the Democratic Party nor the Republican Party for what really is impacting the vast majority of people in this country and the impact that that has around the globe. And, we have to, there are all kinds of, you know, cubs and coves and things that we can go into. But I really feel like we have to think about some sort of political independence. And I think this is an opportunity. It is very clear that the Republican or the Democratic Party are going to address what the vast majority of people in this country really need in order to survive and thrive. And we have to begin to set our own course and agenda. And I think this is an opportunity
hmm
to do that. We should see this election as an opportunity to really dig into that and lean into that so that we can talk about what our futures are going to look like. I
Well,
mean,
that's why I always felt that, because I want to get around. That's why I felt that Senator Sanders had it right, that he's an independent who caucuses with the Democrats.
Mhm.
Because that, and quite frankly, that is my approach. And it's as we move toward Rahm Emanuel and this rightward shift of the party, that is probably going to be my approach because it makes me feel much more comfortable. Um, because Reverend always had to. My father always had to run against the party, against it.
Right.
From our times in locally, Dwight was the youngest found. He and Allie Walker were the youngest founding board members of Operation Push more than 50 years ago, and I'm exhausted. I mean, really, Lenny, Lenny Brody,
Yeah.
I'm exhausted. And George Washington told us that this two party system,
Hmm.
Right.
this is
Right.
Yeah.
don't
Well,
do it.
yeah. I joined Progressive Democrats of America in 2000 when George W. Bush was elected. And
Mhm.
I've been working within the Democratic Party for quite a while. And it's become clear to me that it's more naive to set the Democratic Party on the right course than it is to start a new party. And I think that it's just clear what's going on. The people who control the Democratic Party are never going to give up that control. They stopped Bernie over and over again. And it really seems foolish at this point to talk about changing or capturing the Democratic Party. I think that it's much more reasonable and logical to begin the long term process of organizing a working class party. And I think that, we should do that in relation to the midterm elections and start organizing independently of the Democratic Party. And, you can try and convince me about that, but I don't see any really choice than to organize and take the time to do it. You know.
I agree.
Um,
No, Alan.
Well, I do want to respect Minister Gatewood, who hasn't spoken yet, if he wants to say something. But I certainly have a direct response to Lenny, and also thoughts on what Sheila said too. But Minister Gatewood, you haven't spoken
No,
yet. Do
I
you
don't
want
want you to lose the thought. You know, time is moving for all of us
Oh, yeah. Okay. So
in
what
terms
else?
of our ages.
Yeah, well, what I'll say first of all to Sheila is, okay, we support a cornerstone of our platform, and we don't actually. One of the reasons we'll be working with Rainbow Push on the People's Agenda is PDA doesn't actually have a platform, but we do support certain policy framings, and one that we've highlighted since I've been executive director is a 21st Century Economic Bill of Rights. Now, there are four particular policies that we think have really been harming middle class, working class, and poor communities. And we focused on them in the election because we felt those were sort of more accessible for a Harris campaign around the cost of childcare, housing, higher education, and healthcare. But our 21st Century Economic Bill of Rights, sometimes people look at it and they see it primarily as an anti-poverty platform. And it is certainly designed to basically eliminate poverty in the United States of America. I mean, that's the goal of our 21st Century Economic Bill of Rights. Having said that, I don't disagree with the sort of almost a strategic impulse of what you said, Sheila. For instance, in PDA, until we do feel like we're comfortably part of a faction that controls the party in the way that the centrists have, we would very much benefit from outside organizations demanding of the Democratic Party or politicians in general that they support, very, very clear anti-poverty platforms. I mean, a country this large, look, there are about 20 countries in the world that are the wealthiest countries in the world. And for what it's worth, almost all of them outside of the Gulf states, right, are, first of all, they're our Cold War allies. They're democratic, constitutional democratic republics, oftentimes are parliamentary democracies. But they are what? Australia, New Zealand, the East Asian countries, Japan, South Korea,
go on
Taiwan, Western Europe, and Canada. And of all those countries, there's in the United States, arguably the wealthiest of all of them, right, is the only country which over the last 4 decades, 5 decades, 6 decades, has had endemic poverty geographically concentrated in areas around the country, right? Mm-hmm. Oftentimes in urban cores, most notably in urban cores, and then certain regions like Appalachia, et cetera, certainly the Southeast in general. It's outrageous. Here are these other countries with an economic model, largely actually, many of them written and sort of organized constitutionally by the United States after World War II. I mean, largely we wrote the German Constitution after World War II in West Germany, right? The Roosevelt and Truman administrations. They brought the logic of the New Deal to these social democratic countries all around the world with universal state organized healthcare, right, et cetera. They have much stronger middle classes. They have much stronger unions. And the United States is this one country, but in particular, where there's this deep endemic poverty that exists in concentrated areas. It doesn't exist in these other 19 countries. The idea that we as a society couldn't model those other societies and thereby eliminate poverty is absurd. I mean, there's no economic, you cannot rationally make an economic argument saying it can't happen. What is true is getting there from where we are now in terms of our economic organization. The people, as it were, are weak compared to capital. I don't want to talk in any kind of like Marxist lingo because this isn't Marxism. This is still market-based economies. But popular movements coming out of the Great Depression were strong compared to the strength of, say, finance capital now. So the problem we face now in just saying, look at all these other countries, they don't have entrenched poverty. Why don't we just go there? Is that so much of the political and economic power is concentrated in the hands of the few that if they don't support it, they can really make the project very difficult for the society, right? So that's what we have to sort of finesse to get to. But there's no reason we can't have a basically zero poverty economy because so many of these other countries, very similar in technological and industrial organization to ours, have next to zero poverty economies. So, of course, by the way, the history of racism, we all know, is central to this in the United States. But that's the idea that it's not doable. And I like the idea, though, of like an organization like the Poor People's Movement. Always, I think, absolutely withhold your support from the Democratic Party until we're in the right position on this, because it's utterly outrageous that we don't center those politics, in my opinion. And we try to do that at PDA with the 21st Century Economic Bill of Rights. And Lenny, to your point, I don't know what to say, except I think third parties in the United States, very distinctly, again, among all the other democracies in the world, have always lent themselves to a two-party system. Why that is, I don't think I've ever heard a really convincing argument, but I think it has something to do with the way that the states are strong, and then there's two national parties and the capacity of the two national parties to wipe out any third party that might emerge at the state level.
But what makes you think you could take over the Democratic Party? I mean, they run you in circles.
No, you're right. When I wrote an article for Common Dreams 2 days after the election, and I put it out, the core of it was my response the following day in my national PDA email, and I shared it with friends on text. I wrote, "I am Sisyphus," right? I understand that what I'm doing, I'm condemning myself to an eternity of failing to try to do this in the Democratic Party. But I just think institutionally there's no other way, and to pull energy off to a third party would be to hand so much power to the Trumpians right now.
Well, if you look at what happened in Mexico, the Morena movement created its own party and destroyed that two-party system. And increasingly around the world, movements are beginning to develop their own parties. And in the United States, the more time goes on and poverty increases, if you say you're a Democrat, people are not going to want to talk to you. Downstate Illinois, people will not talk to you if you're a Democrat. And it's true in the majority of counties in the country. It's only the two coasts where you can get a hearing. And I think that the economic crisis is so bad worldwide, and that includes Europe, that people are looking for alternatives and are building movements. And that's what we're doing. We're building a mass movement that's going to be the basis of a new party.
Can I just reply quickly for two things there?
Very quickly, then I'm going to Minister Gatewood.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, I lost my train of thought. Go to Minister Gatewood, and I'll come back. Yeah, I'll come back to that.
Okay, Minister Gatewood.
First, I want to say two things as a Black man, one, and as a Baptist minister, two. I'm not sure if anyone has been paying attention to it, but after Trump's election, there was a surge in stock. Number one, in Core Civic, 29%. In the Geo group, 42%. What do these groups have in common? Privatized prisons.
Right.
So it is essential that we address what is going on here. Number one, the Trump presidency, and number two, with this surge in privatized prisons, and what do we expect to see from this? Of course, we know a lot of it has to do with the immigration policies of Trump. But also we know that in this country, there's a serious sentencing disparity. We have about 40% of Black men or Black people in prison, when we only make up about 12% of the population. So we understand that this surge is going to actually impact Black people. And you add to that the 13th Amendment of the Constitution, which of course allows servitude or legalized slavery based upon a so-called conviction of a crime. And we know, unfortunately, that will not happen with Donald Trump. He's been convicted of a crime, and now he's president. In fact, he's been convicted 34 times, and he's president of the United States of America. But people who look like me, who've been convicted, they're packed into privatized prisons in addition to this mass incarceration. So these are the types of issues that we also have to look at, because what I think we're going to see is we're going to see that mass incarceration, not just the new Jim Crow, but it's the new slavery. It's the new slavery. You're going to have predominantly Black people and brown people who are being incarcerated through sentencing disparities and also through so-called undocumented immigrants. And these guys are privatizing the prisons. And so that means they can have products, all different types of things, labor free. So
labor that's not paid for.
That's not, that's not paid for.
Because there's a difference between free. Free is volunteer.
Okay, yeah, exactly. In other words, yeah, right. In other words, we're talking about slavery.
Yeah. Well, you know what? But it's interesting because while we're looking at Trump, Someone who really pushed the prison industrial complex was Joe Biden when he was a senator.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like something that he was proud of. He
Mm-hmm.
touted it. I mean, to me, it's the oligarchy that's pushing this.
Right. Right.
And one of it does it with a smile, the other one does it,
Absolutely.
a little more harshly. But I mean, to me, it's both of these parties. I mean, and it's driving Americans to the edge. You're seeing the plurality of voters don't want to be bothered with either of these parties.
Right.
And that number is growing. 900,000 fewer voters voted in New York
Right.
than 4 years ago. I mean, that's a million people. I mean, and we're living in a socially, America is a tinderbox. If somebody says the wrong thing, it is on and cracking.
Mm.
And we have to look at that.
Well,
You
well,
know,
I think my point has to do with the fact that we have, like you said, two parties. Number one,
and wait a minute, and now they're killing everybody. I mean, because now it's like every day, well, every other day, I'm hearing about someone else who's being executed.
oh yeah,
And it's a dispute. Well, we found evidence that maybe, they didn't do it. I mean, what?
yeah. And
What are we
people need to
doing?
understand this also. The first president in over 2 decades to reactivate the federal death penalty is Donald Trump. Donald Trump also, and I have to say this because a lot of times we may think, well, this is just something that people got mad and they went out and voted for Trump or whatever. But we need to understand the consequences that we may be facing as well, because it would not surprise me if Donald Trump and that crew that he had put together would egg on China, would egg on North Korea, having the white off the face of the earth while they're down in a bunker somewhere. So my point is, we do not
Well, you see what Biden did today, right?
What did he do?
Well, he gave permission for Ukraine to fire long-range missiles into Russia.
Absolutely. And see, I've always been on the side of, and this is why I think the Democratic Party should rethink things. I've always been on the side of the peace advocates, and it seems as if the Democratic Party has gotten away from the peace advocates, the people who are saying, we want more money put into poverty, we want more money put into education, we want more money put into health. And now it looks as if the Democratic Party has all of a sudden tried to outdo the right. They're trying to outdo their white right. And so we find ourselves in this situation rather than dealing with the issues that impact. What I think is why Trump is winning is because he has a core base of racists. He does not back away from racists. He will build coalition with racists. I'm thinking on the Democratic side or the opposing party, you should try to build coalition with those who advocate for justice. Because a lot of times people who want justice can also vary in race and socioeconomic status. So I would say the Democratic Party has gotten away from their core message of justice. And it's now, and I'm not going to say necessarily limited to the Democratic Party, because at one time it was the Republican Party. They were abolitionists at one point. Of course, then the Democrats, of course, around the 1950s and early 60s, they started attracting black people because, of course, they were talking more about on the side of civil rights and against segregation and Jim Crow. So it looked as if that's when the shift started. However, whatever we need to do to find justice, if it means a new party, whatever that looks like, we have to advocate for justice and say that is what's missing. And it's also missing in how scripture is being interpreted and has been hijacked from the Democratic Party. And now it's become a Republican thing when it's the most hypocritical thing that could ever happen. We need to make sure if we're not going to be on the side of the Democratic Party, we should make it clear that it's intergenerational, it's international, it's nonpartisan. But you can't keep letting these guys take religion while they are the rich that Jesus spoke clearly against. They're for the poor. They're against the poor that Jesus clearly advocated for. They're against everything that Jesus stood for. So, I just think that we're allowing the Republican Party to do more to come directly against religion, directly against justice, while the Democratic Party is sitting over there like cowards.
Well, first of all, they took God out the platform. Okay. I remember that in 2012. And I left the building, because I'm tired of that. because I need to have space for me.
Absolutely.
I need to have space because my religion shapes my politics. My politics does not shape my religion. The reason I am anti-poverty, the reason I believe that God did not make a mouth he could not feed. And God is too wise to make a mistake and too kind to be cruel. That is my religion that teaches me that. And that you can be whatever religion you want. I honor that. I celebrate that. And if you don't have one, I celebrate and honor that too. But I'm just talking about how I'm rolling. And I am tired because you know what? None of these people are trying to eliminate poverty. None of these people are trying to get our children educated. The University of Chicago is $100,000 a year undergrad. The University of Chicago, Columbia University is too. Who can go there? Our children can't go there. I mean, what?
And not only that, the Democratic Party said that the economy is fine, that everything is going well, and that the U.S. has the best economy in the world. And Trump has plenty of racists backing him, but he also said the economy is not doing well. And a lot of people who are suffering voted for Trump because he was the one addressing the economics and the Democratic Party wasn't. And you can see that the Democratic Party is imploding and has no future. So that the question before us is, what are we going to do?
Can I just say one other thing?
Sure.
I would like to say this. Had I been running for president, I would not have gotten on the debate stage with Trump. I would not even allow him to be a legitimate candidate. I would have challenged his eligibility. I would have challenged the 2 impeachments that he already had. I would challenge those 34 convictions that he had not paid his debt to society. I would challenge his violent coming against democracy while also having an assassination attempt as a part of that attempted coup d'etat. So when I'm talking about, of course, I'm talking about Mike Pence. So I don't think I would have wanted. See, Joe Biden, I think, and Kamala, I think they gave Trump too much validity. And I would say, look, we need to have if the Democratic Party, if the Republican Party is not going to come up with a legitimate candidate, then I say to them every time I get on the debate stage, Mr. Trump, you should be in prison. If you want to be tough on crime, then look in the mirror of
Well, we need you to run for office.
You need to be in prison. I don't need to be debating you. Why am I going to debate you? You a
look at the guy he put in as attorney general. I mean, look at the guy he put in as attorney general, right? He's putting in people
that's what criminals do. Yeah. This is what I'm saying. He's not a legitimate candidate. Who said he was? And if it was,
the people, you know what? You know that all the people who voted for him.
I know, but what I'm saying is the Democratic Party did not press enough. They gave him some validity that he did not deserve. That's what I'm saying.
And I respectfully push back because I've lived with someone for a lifetime who got into the arena with the enemy and the lions. And what you have to do is be smarter, be quicker, and knock them down. Confront them, look them in the eye, and don't back down. Because that's the nature of the beast. I'm not gonna waste she had 107, 108 days. I can't challenge his candidacy. What I can do is I can put my ideas out there.
If you put a con man
I'm gonna tell
in front of 70 million people, chances are he's already a manipulator of minds. He's a fraud. Why give him that? If he goes out there on his own, I'll let him go. But what I'm saying is, I would have been talking about the issues, but at the same time, I would have said, I'm not going to give a con man, fraud, criminal, have him on the same platform with me as a president of the United States of America or vice president. He needs to be in prison.
I got you, but for me, I hear you, but I'm saying I believe in getting on the stage and at that level where you are, and you take them down point by point. That's just me, but I respect where you're coming from. Because I saw William Buckley come to our convention in 1982, and you know how big he was at that time, and Reverend took him on. Reverend went all night line and took on Jerry Falwell at the heart of apartheid.
But this is not about being afraid to take people on.
But I'm saying in these arenas, I'm not saying being afraid. I'm just saying it's a tactic. I'm just telling you what I've seen.
Right.
And I respect where you're coming from, but I'm
Yeah.
saying when you're in that arena and in that campaign, I'm just accustomed to people confronting. And you know what? And guess what? And I'm going to beat you. I'm gonna take you out. I'm smarter than you. I'm quicker than you, and I'm right. So you
My
know what?
question is, man, what are prisons for? Why would we have you up here?
Then then break code and then ask him about the Central Park Five that he refused, who he refuses to apologize for. Ask him about that. But you can't ask him if you're not on the stage with him. But that having been said, guess what? This is where we are today. So I mean, I'm feeling you.
I'm just being real. I mean,
but I just know, part of the reason Dr. King yanked my father out of the University of Chicago Seminary was because he said, I know the kind of minister you're going to be, and I'm going to teach you how to do this. And you have to go into this den of thieves and confront these people. You're going to have to do it, and you can't back down. You can't stutter. And I'm not saying that's what I'm not saying that you're a proponent of that.
No, I'm not.
I'm just. I know.
I don't believe in scratching where I don't itch or laughing where there's nothing funny.
I want you to know I wasn't implying that, and I didn't want to infer that. I just had a different tactic. And
absolutely, and that's what panels are for.
That's right.
To give different perspectives, and it's my perspective is that just like they had this so-called rule about we don't negotiate with terrorists. Well, Trump is a terrorist. So why am I sitting on the stage?
And they do negotiate
with his fan base by having him sit up there, giving him the opportunity to come out with new lies that will put people in harm's danger, such as talking about immigrants, illegal immigrants who were legal, Haitians, eating cats and dogs. Now we got to go out. He's incited another riot where people are going to be put in harm's way because you're giving him a mic in front of 70 million people when he should be in prison. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
I hear you. I just say take him out.
Yeah. Well, Santita, if your dad was a little younger, he would not only be confronting Trump, he would be leading people out of the Democratic Party and into a new fighting party that could represent poor people.
I remember what I wanted to say to Lenny about this case. Okay, I certainly remember this. Okay, look, I think it's an incredibly wrong-headed time to lead a movement for a third party. Why? Because there's a void of leadership in the Democratic Party. Right now, if Rahm
Emanuel void, the rich people are running it. They control it.
Right now, there's acknowledged to be a void, and we are trying to gather and organize for the ascendancy of the progressive wing of the party in the meetings of the Democratic Party in February and March, where a new leader will be chosen. Okay, we're going to be opposing Rahm Emanuel. We're going to be we supported Keith Ellison, who almost won control of the party in 2017. PDA was directly involved in that. And look, if we lose and Rahm wins, by all means, Lenny, let's talk, okay? But
all right, you want me to give you one more chance? I'll give you one more chance.
But there's one other component of it. Look, compared to 2015, look, PDA was the organization that drafted Bernie to run in 2013 to 15. We ran the run.
I was there. I was part of that.
Mm-hmm. Right. So compared to where we were in 2013. Right, with members like Summer Lee, with Rashida Tlaib, with AOC, and by the way, there are a number of other excellent progressive Democrats across the country. By the way, Jonathan Jackson's fantastic, and so we actually have a beachhead of left progressive social Democrats inside the Democratic Party. We didn't have that barely at all in 2013, 2012, and now we have a leadership void. And it's stronger than it was in 2016, 2017. The squad didn't exist when Ellison almost won. Now, it is true that we may not have as many people who are with us inside the DNC. So going into that meeting, it might be a bit of an uphill climb again. But we're going to organize forward and try to do the best we can. There is a leadership void. There is a beachhead of left progressives who I think share your political ideology as much as I can discern it from these past 40 minutes, right? 50 minutes. So I think hold out a little bit. And I'd love to actually work with the people who are calling for a third party right now along the lines you are in terms of these next few months. And then look, after that, if it's a terrible result at those meetings, I'm not unconfident that we could pull something off at least a lot more positive than where we've been with the Democratic Party.
I mean, I think
All
history
right.
is going to decide. I mean, the reality is that people are showing that there's a trend toward some sort of political independence. This you can't withstand. You know, I repeat myself for emphasis. I
Mhm.
grew up in Flint, Michigan. You
Mhm.
know, the reality of that is so stark.
Right.
You know,
For sure.
these
Absolutely.
corporations are making money hand over fist. When Sean Fain said we're going to have a stand up strike, you know, and talked about how we have to recoup, not just recoup, but we got to move ahead of where we were left after the Bush administration and, let's be frank, the Obama administration regarding wages for auto workers for auto production. But yet auto production continues to boom in this country with far less auto workers. Why? You know, you have to look at what's at the base, what's really going on, not our presumptions or what we think. I mean, we have to look at the reality of the world. And the reality is that we're different than Germany or these other countries. We have a different history than what Germany has, and what they've been able to accomplish is certainly predicated on their history. And trust me, I was just on a phone with a very dear, close, she's like my sister, who lives in Germany, and she and her husband were both unemployed at the same time. Germany has cut their unemployment, so you don't collect unemployment. The amount is less. The length of time that you're able to get it, they're dealing with homelessness, they're dealing with immigrants. You know, I was there when the wall went down. And, you know, looking at the shifts, there's a grab. Once you opt out of the public healthcare system, it's not the same as the NHS in Europe. But once you opt out of that in Germany, you can never go back. You can never go back. So my friend's husband, when he was working, opted for the employee-based health care. When he became unemployed, he was no longer covered. And he can't go back into the quote unquote public health care system. So they're making changes based on, you know, what's happening in their economy and their political economic system as well, which is not to the benefit of the vast majority of Germany.
Right. No, I agree. Right.
So
No, I love your points.
Okay,
Actually,
because we're
they're
gonna
well
have to wrap. We're gonna
we
have
have
to
to
wrap
wrap.
things up.
wrap up, and I will say the NHS the same. You know, the NHS in England.
Right.
I used to
Right.
send
But
my
what we're
son.
seeing this, I think we can all
We're
agree
seeing this
that we're
globally.
seeing this globally
Yep.
because I keep pointing people to the tent program for refugees. It's more than 400 corporations that are moving these migrants out of their countries because you want to depopulate Africa so you can have Africa without Africans and they can take all the resources. They want Venezuela without Venezuelans. I mean, these people, this is what they're doing. And they're moving these people here to be cheap labor. These folks never learn. This is a corporate program. I mean, we're not in a democracy, we're in an oligarchy. And we need to just be clear on that. Now, how are we gonna fight this? And the thing is, we can, but we first have to acknowledge where we are. And number one, that's how we got here, because this was an oligarchical project called colonialism. That's why we're here. That's why we're all here.
All right, speak on it, Santita.
It's true. America's business is business.
I know, I love it. I love
You
it.
got to understand that to understand this, so we can get over there.
Yeah.
Period. And so the Democrats they have a reckoning. What's going to happen early next year? I'm with that, and I'm willing to give that space. But I want to go on the record with the disrespect that we saw Reverend Jackson absorb in '84 and '88. We, my brothers and I, were ready to go then. My mother, we were ready to go then, but my father said there are people back here. We're trying to get people in, so we can have this discussion 40 years later. Because then we were on the menu. We did not have a seat at the table, and so there was a lot of disrespect that was absorbed.
Absolutely.
In order for us to get here.
All right. All right.
That's why Bernie Sanders was punched in the face. He was called a self-loathing Jew because he decided, as to be one of two white elected officials, to stand with Jesse Jackson and campaign hard and run our campaign.
Yeah.
Because he said, you know what? I've been getting arrested for 20 years at that point. This doesn't matter to me, because he wasn't a senator then; he was a mayor, and I felt horrible. I said, "Are you okay?" He said, "Oh, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. I'm standing on principle. I'm standing on principle. Don't worry about that." He
And
said
that's
that.
key. That's
And
key.
I was just like, I felt horrible. He said, no,
That's
don't
key.
worry about this. He said, Santita, honey, this is your father. We take this so you won't have to. So now what are we go? That's what I heard Mike Tyson say that about his children. He said, I grew up poor, poor, poor. I take punches so my children won't have to. My father said, I'm running. I might not make it out, baby. I might not. And the probability is high that I won't. So, but I got to take the ceiling off of your ambitions and we got to end poverty. Nelson Mandela and Walter Sisulu got to get out of jail. We got to end this hell the Palestinians are living in and the fear that Israelis are living under. And we got, I mean, come on, y'all. That's all we're talking about today. And as we debate with each other, we got to keep doing it so that we can come up with the right answers.
Right.
You know, because the thing is, we have made more progress in the Democratic Party as much as they vex me and make me crazy. Because what was it? Who was it told me that it was my fault? TJ said, you spent the last year bashing Biden. Now you want to know what happened? You're responsible for fascism. I hope you get fired again. I just might. But I wasn't fired because I wasn't hired. I didn't work for WCPT. I work for me. I own my show.
There you go.
So I say what I want. And I not only say what I want, I say what you need me to say.
Yeah.
So I'm good with that because I know I haven't missed a meal and God's going to take care of me. I am all good. I didn't bash senators. I didn't bash Vice President Biden and President Biden. I did not. I told you the truth about his record and I'm not going to back down.
Thank you.
I know he stood with segregationists. I know 2 weeks after Rodney King was beaten half to death, he offered up a police officer's Bill of Rights on the U.S. Senate floor.
He sure did.
I know he said he didn't want his children in a racial jungle. He's grown, and I appreciate that. But I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to back away. I'm a grown woman.
You know,
And you know what? People can be prejudiced. They can be racist. They can be all that. The question is, how are you going to grow? I'm not going to hold you to that. Let's grow.
Yeah. The Poor People's Campaign. The Poor People's Campaign has organizations in 40 states. We're nonpartisan. And in 2 months, if your thing doesn't work out, Alan, come see us because we're ready to.
I love you guys. You know, of course I do.
You know what? What we're going to do is continue to have conversations here so that we can be, so as you go, because we're going to support you as you go into this process. And then we will reassess. How about that?
Yeah, it sounds beautiful. Yep.
How about that?
All right.
Minister Gatewood, what do you have to say before we go?
I just wanted to say the problem we have right now is we have people who are fighting for racism and hatred are more organized and determined right now than the people who are supposedly fighting for justice. And so what needs to happen is
Amen.
So what needs to happen is the people who claim they want justice and righteousness, we need to organize, we need to come together, and we need to fight harder. You cannot let the racists outfight the folk who are advocating for justice. And that's what we're seeing. Whether you call it Democrats, whether you call it Republicans, doesn't matter what you call it. Who's for justice and who's not?
That's it. That's why we have to give credit to the Republicans who voted with uncommitted. There's some people who I don't care where they have lined up. There's some things that they're saying now that make them sick. So I'm not writing anybody off, and I'm not going to stay all the way in. So let's do this, and let's continue. And just know that on this platform, everybody has a home here. And let's keep talking. Let's keep arguing. Let's keep pushing. Let's keep fighting, and let's hug it out at the end. Come on, everybody, hug.
Yeah, there we go.
All right. Thank you, Santita.
Alan, I'm on my way to LA. So
Great. Yeah, give me a call. Love to see you out here.
I'll be there Thursday, Friday.
Look forward to seeing you. There we go.
Nice seeing everybody.
96th birthday. Can you believe Barry Gordy is 96? Barry
Oh, wow.
Wow. Amen. Oh yeah. So we got a lot to celebrate, everybody. A lot. But I want to let you all know that I love you and I appreciate you and I respect you. And I say that to the Morning Stars, to everybody who's part of this family. Everybody like and share the show. You know what? I don't mind being disagreed with. I really don't. And I don't mind someone, taking a shot. I'm a grown woman. I can do that. I'm a big girl. I got that. But what I don't want you to do is to misrepresent our and my position.
Mhm.
I'm not going to let you do that. I have never bashed President Biden. What I've done is challenge him to make him better and to make him right.
And told the truth.
And
Mhm.
and I'm going to do that. And you know what? Let me tell you something. I am comfortable. When they came into my home and told me that they were not going to let me on air the next day, I was good with that. And I went right to the city council and helped to vote the ceasefire, the resolution, and support them.
Mm.
And I didn't mention it. And they wanted to know, well, why didn't you tell us? I said, because I wanted to have that victory. I said, we'll deal with this because the Lord has blessed me. I ain't missed a meal. I'm good. And that's all right. So you can say what you will. We're just going to keep on going and we're going to keep on growing. Support the Progressive Democrats of America. They are making progress. Support the Poor People's Campaign in every state and challenge our elected officials to put poverty, the ending of poverty, on the agenda. We have to demand it.
Mhm.
That's why we had Resurrection City, and my father was the mayor of that. We were going to have a sit-in on the mall until they dealt with poverty, and we need to do that.
Yep.
Right.
We need to push because guess what? It's not going to get any better until we decide that we want to be free. You know what they say, Pharaoh, let my people go. Well, let Pharaoh go. How about that? Why don't y'all let all of this greed go? Let's do that. Let's go another way because it's not working. This is not
Amen.
working. You're not supposed to go bankrupt because you want to get well.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
You're
Right.
supposed to have bodily autonomy. Yes, you are. I'm saying it.
Yes. Yes.
All of this.
Yes. Yes.
So let's come on, everybody. Let's go up in our politics and let's go for it.
Yes.
All right.
Your land. It's for you and me.
Mhm.
It's for the we. Come
Mhm.
on. Let's do this. And I love you. Morning stars, I love you. Let's hug it out. All right, Robert. Now
Thanks,
thank you for staying
Santita.
with me. Oh no, you speak, Sheila. I love y'all. AM 950 Radio, the voice of Progressive Minnesota. I'm Santita. And this is the panel. We are family. Love y'all.